Welcome to episode number 180 of the Marine Layer podcast. It's a mailbag episode. We will answer some of your guys' best questions you sent us. We also have a potential second base option for the Mariners coming up in 2025. We'll discuss.
This show is brought to you by our friends over at Pagach's Pub 85, our favorite place to go plan an evening with our friends because there's all these different fun activities that you can get involved in there. You can watch all the sports you desire. There's 20 TVs in that place. So between the NFL, college football, college hoops coming back, NBA, hockey, whatever you're in the mood for, head over there and watch the game with your friends. You can also have some awesome food. You can play pool. You can play darts. And if you get there during happy hour, there are deals that you just can't miss. Happy hour drinks are $3 and $4. Yeah, you heard that right. $3 and $4. And it's from 2 to 6 p.m. on Monday through Friday. So get involved. All of that is over at Pagach's Pub 85 in Kirkland. Your guys' reminder, stay on top of all of our stuff. We're going to be busy all off season. You don't want to miss anything. So to do that, make sure you're downloading these podcast episodes on the audio side. If you do, make sure you rate and review 5 stars. You're doing us a huge, huge, huge favor if you do that. Make sure to download and review. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. It's right in front of you. It just takes a second to do. It's the best way you can support the channel. Make sure to do that. Like, comment, etc. And on social media, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube Shorts at Marine Layer Pod.
Let's get it rolling.
The pitch from Acevedo. A drive deep to right field. Down the line. The Mariners win this game 2-1. The dream lives. They're going to the playoffs. One more from Jansen. There you go. Left field. We got a tie ball game. Julio. Oh, baby, what a moment. Tie ball game at 7-7.
And we welcome you to this episode of the Marine Layer podcast, part of the Just Baseball Podcast Network, recording here on Thursday evening, November 7th. And we've finally got a name we haven't heard about all that much to talk about, Lyle, as you broached this to me today, and it's been floating in the news a little bit this week. The Mariners have actually checked in on someone this free agency. Yes, like Lyle, they've reached out to a free agent. Let me repeat those words. Mariners don't like free agency. Reached out to one. Who is it?
Before we even get to that, can we put something to bed here? We got to stop with this whole checked-in thing in free agency. It is one of the dumbest terms, period. Because checked-in could mean anything. The Rays checked in on Juan Soto. The Rays ain't signing him.
What was that conversation like?
Juan, we want to give you 12 years for $150. Fuck off. That's how that went.
Well, you know what Juan Soto does? He's like, where are you guys playing your home games next year? And then they go, he's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's what I thought. I'm not playing in a stadium that has like tatters falling from its roof. So that's the point. It's like the Mariners checked in on Shohei Ohtani, I'm sure.
Actually, they didn't. They balked at the money because it wasn't a smart strategy.
Well, it doesn't mean they didn't check in on him.
Well, maybe they called. This is why checked in is so stupid. It can mean you have an offer on the table, or it can mean you called for 5 seconds and hung up. You know what I was seeing today and throughout the last couple days after all this Rays have checked in on Juan Soto things? People are taking it and having a field day online. I saw 100 different tweets of people quote tweeting it saying, I checked in on Sidney Sweeney.
So we can use checked in on just slide in DMs. Like,
yeah,
I've checked in on plenty of people. Doesn't mean they always send a message back, but hey, you just got to check in. You're feeling it out. That's what you're doing.
Okay.
Jerry's in the process right now of sliding into DMs. Unfortunately, the Mariners are, the kind of awkward kid who just doesn't get many messages back right now.
Or they're the kid that everybody at school says, yeah, don't affiliate yourself with that guy. So it could be that too. Because they're toxic.
Does that kid wear deodorant? No. Oh, no, he doesn't. Yeah, no.
Yeah. Or that they, yeah. I mean, maybe toxic's unfair, but it probably is unfair. But bad ballpark, guys can't hit there. They don't win a lot. It's hard.
Front office doesn't have a good reputation.
Right.
Neither does ownership. It's cold.
So checked in can mean anything. So this is me and my little preamble before we get into the show. We got to put this to rest. Checked in is it's the dumbest thing ever. The A's could check in on Juan Soto.
In case people are wondering, this podcast also checked in on Juan Soto. He's out of our budget.
We tried to fork up the money to pay for him, but we couldn't do it.
We're about probably about 1 million subscribers short. So if you're listening to this or watching this and you're not subscribed, we're trying to sign Juan Soto. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, download our episodes, share it with a friend. Yeah. Tell him to do the same thing.
Guys, we'll keep reiterating it. If you guys get us there, we'll put all our money back into the good of the people and trying to win baseball games. We will give Juan Soto a blank check for whatever he wants if we have the money for it. But we can't get there without your guys' help, and we can't give him the money if we don't have the money. We're not owners of a baseball team. We're just podcasters. So help us get there, and we will give Juan Soto the money.
Did the Mariners check in on Sydney Sweeney? You brought her up. That's the big question, I think.
I doubt it. She's from Washington. Maybe she'll throw out a first pitch at some point.
Has she in the past?
No, not at a Mariners game.
Okay, so then outside of Juan Soto, I think the biggest need for the Mariners this offseason is to check in on Sydney Sweeney. Get her to the park next summer. I'm serious.
This is where we're at. So this is where you draw the line in terms of what you step over and not over. So we sit here and say there's too many fireworks nights and bobblehead nights, but if Sydney Sweeney throws a first pitch, TJ says, "Oh, that's fine."
Listen, we're talking about what the Mariners don't want to do. They don't like signing older players. They don't like multi-year contracts. We're talking about a one-day contract for someone in her 20s. Come on. It's a slam dunk. It's free marketing. And she'll come on the mic with us, too. Right, Lyle?
Well, that might be our most viewed video ever. We did that.
We're going to make it. We're going to make it happen. So I'm asking the Mariners to check in on Sydney Sweeney for our benefit. Thank you.
In conclusion, stop with check-in free agency. You need to elaborate on what that means if you're putting that out there. Or if you hear that from somebody, why are you tweeting it out? Just wait till the deal's done. This is why Passon's the GOAT. Passon doesn't tweet these things. You know when he tweets? When deals happen. Yeah.
You're right. So what do you think then John Morosi meant when he went on 710 this week and said the Mariners checked in on not Hye-Seong Kim, one of his former countrymen in Korea who is going to be posted and could come over here to MLB this season, Hye-Seong Kim, another infielder. What do you think the Mariners, what level of checking in there? Did they slide in his Instagram DMs? Did they reach out to his agent? What did they do?
I'm sure there's been conversations. The Mariners are usually pretty tuned in on a lot of the international players. And Morosi did say he had actual face-to-face conversations with Justin Hollander at the GM meetings this week, which is going on. So I'm sure that didn't come from nowhere. We know that Morosi's developed at times a little bit of a nickname on Mariners Twitter that may or may not be tabbed as the Yapper, considering last offseason he said the Mariners were linked to Cody Bellinger, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Shohei at one point. Who else am I forgetting? Literally every free agent ever he said the Mariners were linked to last year, and a lot of Mariners fans got really, really tired of it. Which, again, this is why Passon only tweets when things break. Anyway, that being said, in fairness to Morosi, he has clearly had conversations at the GM meetings this week with Justin Hollander. He said that. He said Justin Hollander was talking about how second base is going to be one of their priorities this offseason for finding outside talent to help upgrade the roster. And Hye-Seong Kim is a middle infielder and a guy who, in theory, if the Mariners signed, would play second base. So I think what he means is the Mariners have done their due diligence. They've talked to his agent. They probably want to know what his price range is. And they internally are at least going to consider it. Certainly doesn't mean they're going to do it. But unlike the Rays checking in on Juan Soto, I am sure there is some level of intrigue. It may be 5%, but there is not. It's non-zero.
So let's fill in a little bit of background about Hye-Seong Kim. He's been in Korea for the last 8 years. He's a strong defender up the middle. He has a 766 career OPS in Korea. Morosi was throwing out some numbers on Thursday on 710 saying he would get a contract around 2 years for $15 million. If you want to wonder why the Mariners are in on Hye-Seong Kim, that contract number, I would believe, is a huge reason why. He's in their budget, costing about $7.5 million a year. Morosi said 7 to 8, so we'll go right in the middle there with that contract projection. It's really interesting, though. He's got a very similar profile to Hye-Seong Kim, who's already over here in Major League Baseball and is a free agent, and who we talked about on Wednesday's episode as also a strong defender, but also has 4 years of Major League Baseball under his belt and has at least shown he could be an above-average hitter in Major League Baseball. Not a great hitter, but above average. I can't say the same thing for Hye-Seong Kim.
No. If you'd like to just have me get straight into the point here, as Mark Cuban would say on Shark Tank, and for that reason, I'm out. Guy's never played in the big leagues. And I know every guy that comes over internationally, that's the same case. But number one, it's pretty well known Japan is a more competitive league than Korea. People say the KBO is about equivalent to AA competition. So you'd be paying a guy that's essentially never played over AA level competition to come in, take a starting role on a big league team that's supposed to be contending, and ask him to translate in terms of going from the KBO to big league caliber play right away. That's a lot to ask of a guy. And if you want to look at some examples, this is not the best hitter by any stretch to ever come over from Korea. And there are guys that have come over from Korea that have really struggled. Look, in fairness to Kim, last 2 seasons he's put up an 840 OPS. But an 840 OPS in the KBO doesn't scream like a guy that's going to come over and have instant success at the plate in the big leagues right away. He may play good defense, but if you're looking for a defense first, second baseman, go sign Hye-Seong Kim, who's done it and been there and had real success in the majors.
The recent examples you referenced of guys coming over, let's look at Hye-Seong Kim when he came over. He had an 866 OPS in Korea before coming over in the 2021 season. His first season in Major League Baseball, Hye-Seong Kim had a 71 WRC+. Now, because of his great defense, he had about a 2.1 F-WAR, which is good, or a 2.1 B-WAR. Close. It's in the same ballpark. He was worth over 2 wins. Jung-Hoo Lee was an even better hitter than Hye-Seong Kim when he came over last year. Smaller sample size, I think it was just 40 games he played with the Giants before getting hurt. He had a 900 career OPS in Korea before he came over. He had an 83 WRC plus last year. It's not easy for these guys to come over here and blow it out of the water offensively. It's an enormous jump. And while Hye-Seong Kim, over the course of 4 seasons, has developed into a very valuable Major League player, in which case 2 years ago he was worth over 4 wins while putting up a 110 WRC plus with his plus defense. That's great. It took him 3 years to get there. If you're thinking about this, let me ask you this question. Would you be okay signing someone for $7.5 million to put up over 2 wins, but his WRC plus is 71? Would you be okay with that? Answer for me is absolutely not.
Same here, because that's essentially the last 4.5 months of Josh Rojas this past season. Played great defense, was a 2-win player, but didn't hit. If that's what you're gonna sign up for, just roll Rojas back out there. $7.5 million for that? No. And look, Jung-Hoo Lee may still go on to have a really good big league career, but in year 1, I know it was a small sample, got a 640 OPS. He looked overmatched at times against big league pitching. To be fair, he didn't strike out much, but he wasn't exactly a productive bat. If the best hitter in Korea has that type of struggle, I don't love what it means for Hye-Seong Kim. Because, again, if he's on a 2-year deal, it's not like Jung-Hoo Lee being on a 6-year contract where he's going to have time to get acclimated. Maybe by year 3, he's really good. You don't have that time with Hye-Seong Kim on a 2-year contract. You don't have that time, period. This window, I hate to say it, it's closing for the Mariners. You've got maybe 2 years left, max, before you start to see guys get traded if they're not going to extend them. So you got to capitalize on that. And what could be a 70 WRC plus hitter that you'd sign for $7.5 million? No. Absolutely not. Get serious about signing real bats with big league success to get on this infield for your team. Do not take flyers anymore. No more flyers.
The math, I think, is pretty simple on this one. You could think about this way. If they sign Hye-Seong Kim before Hye-Seong Kim signs, like say someone blows the number for Hye-Seong Kim out of the water that I'm going to project here, this is probably your fallback option, which is still not good. But if you think about the math this way, so Hye-Seong Kim, we project it's like 3 for 45 or 4 for 60, $15 million a year, give or take. Let's say it's 3 for 45. Like that's the price tag that the Mariners would be okay getting Hye-Seong Kim to Seattle. The decision to make would be, do we want to pay $30 more total $1 million, not per year, total $1 million for a more proven player, or save $30 million total with an unproven player? $30 million in the grand scheme of things over the course of 3 years, it's not that much money. So it's a pretty easy decision. Maybe Hye-Seong Kim, who is going to play next year at age 26, could eventually be a average Major League Baseball player, but not next year. Sorry.
The easy answer should be to pay Hye-Seong Kim the extra money.
Right.
But that's our answer.
Yeah.
What would the Mariners and the ownership say about that? You know what I think they'd say about giving that much more money to Hye-Seong Kim? I'd say, no, sorry, I'm trying to hold it back here. I'm really trying to hold it back. I'm trying to. Not a smart strategy. Oh, sorry. I just sometimes it just comes out. I tried to hold it back and I failed.
It's like a sneeze.
I know, it really is like a sneeze. I tried not to do it and it was impossible. Sorry. Oh, my bad. I'm going to work on it. I really am.
Unless you have any more notes on this, we'll get into the mailbag.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, first up on the mailbag, we have Braden, who sent us or responded to us on Twitter, and this was his question. He laid out a trade proposal for us. Let me read, sorry, not just a trade proposal. This is an off-season proposal for the Mariners. Let me know how this sounds to you. He suggests Gleyber Torres signs in Seattle 4 years for $48 million. And then the Mariners trade for Vlad Guerrero Jr. for Ty Pete, Harry Ford, Cole Young, Tyler Locklear, and Emerson Hancock. And then his question underneath is this a huge send? Yes. Do you want a good farm? Let me reword this. Is this a yes for a trade? Do you want a good farm system or a good major league team?
Let's start with Gleyber here and then get to Vladdy. I'm not saying this is not going to be the ballpark of what Gleyber Torres gets in a contract. That does feel about right, that he's going to get somewhere between 10, 12, $15 million a year. Do I want to see the Mariners give him that money over 4 years? That feels like you're taking an awful gamble. Now, he is younger. He's not going to be in his mid-30s when you sign him or anything like that. But doesn't play the greatest defense in the world. That's putting it lightly. Isn't hitting in Yankee Stadium anymore. Hasn't been over the moon productive offensively. At least not in 2024. He was about league average. Are we signing up for this?
So you could probably get similar production that Gleyber Torres would bring you for less. I fully believe that. Now, consider in this scenario, your future second base options are limited, especially trading Cole Young away. I know a lot of people want to see Cole Young play at second base this year for the Mariners. He would be gone. So what else would you do at second base here? I think, Lyle, like thinking about this in the grand scheme, if you include Vladdy in this too, I would be okay with it. Because at that point, like if you're adding Vladdy, you're okay adding salary.
Mm-hmm.
So then paying $12 million a year for Gleyber Torres should be less of an issue. And of course, there's some other things to consider here too if we really want to expand beyond this. Like you think about the money, you can make the money less if you can dump some salary otherwise, which will cost you more prospects. But this offseason outline is showing you're willing to push your chips in to win, in which case dumping that salary if you need to, like would would be something they would try and do anyways.
Sure.
So.
Listen, if the Mariners are going to try to sign a player like that, sign me up, because that means they're trying to invest in a winning roster. I know Gleyber Torres isn't perfect, but you're not signing him with the idea that he's going to be average. If you were going to give him that money, that means the Mariners believe, whether it be right in your eyes, the listeners, or our eyes, the podcasters, or not, that they believe he is going to be one of the league's better second basemen. Not an MVP, but he's going to be a productive second baseman, an above average second baseman. And I'd be all for that, because they need an upgrade at that position. So, all right, fair enough. You're just going to have to accept that he is going to come with deficiencies and that he's not a perfect player. Maybe Perry Hill can work with him and his defense and can at least make him league average. That would help. And then if he's going to hit enough and be a doubles guy and get on base, great. I'd pay $12 million a year every single year for that. But we have to see if they're going to do it. Now, Vladdy, let me preface this with saying, you don't have to convince me about getting Vladimir Guerrero Jr. on the Mariners. If you were going to trade for this guy and you were going to give him a blank check for an extension, awesome. Couldn't be more on board. But for 1 year of him, does this not feel like a pretty heavy package to be giving up? This is more than the Padres gave up to get Juan, or sorry, this is more than the Yankees gave up to the Padres to get Juan Soto.
It is, but I'm going to guess this is under the assumption Vladdy's signing an extension if you trade for him.
Even if he is, it still feels like way too much you'd be forced to pay. Like, if he's signing an extension,
For an
great.
extension?
Yeah, okay, but the Blue Jays are not trading him saying, oh, well, you're probably going to get him to sign an extension, so therefore you have to give us more. No, one way or another, it's 1 year of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. you're getting in the trade, and that's what the trade details will feature. To remind people one more time, what this trade says it would be is the Mariners would give up Ty Pete, Cole Young, Harry Ford, Tyler Locklear, and Emerson Hancock. For 1 year of Vladdy, that's a lot.
But if you're Jerry and you believe you can get a deal done with Vladdy, that's worth it, even if it is an overpay. Like, the Blue Jays aren't trading him with the expectation that Seattle's extending him, but Jerry's trading those prospects away with the anticipation that Vladdy stays long term.
Okay, yes, but I'm still standing on the fact that you should not have to give up that much. Again, look at the Soto trade. You're going to have to give up prospects. This is a decent amount. The 5 guys that were thrown into this package, I'd cut it in half. Pick 3 of them, and you have to take at least one of Cole Young or Harry Ford out.
I mean, I'd even do Ty Pete, Harry, and Cole for it.
That still seems like a lot.
If Vladimir Guerrero Jr. would come to Seattle for Ty Pete, Harry Ford, and Cole Young, I would do it.
Well,
even if it is an overpay, even if it's an overpay, I don't care.
I
legitimately don't.
Look, especially if you're going to sign him to the extension. Yes, I'm not saying don't make the trade, because then you're getting 8 years or whatever of Vladdy Jr. I'm just still trying to find a way that the Mariners trade for him, sign him to the extension, but they don't have to give up all of that. Because again, I don't know if you would. Now, okay, you know what? Thinking about this out loud, to be fair, Michael King went back to the Padres in that trade, and he was somewhat of a proven big leaguer. So doing some verbal processing here, there are no big leaguers attached in this trade, and maybe that's why you'd have to give up higher-end prospects. So that could be. 5 guys just seems like a lot. If it was 3, maybe more to your point, all right.
We keep telling the Mariners to stop threading the needle in their offseason plans. I'm going to ask the 2 of us to stop trying threading the needle for a Vladdy trade. Like, let's just do it. Do what it takes. If you have to overpay, okay.
If he signs the extension, great.
Show Vladdy how much you want him. Show him how much he's worth to you. And then he might want to stay.
Would him seeing the trade package they give up resonate with him at all? I don't think Vladdy's exactly tied in on MLB prospects.
No, but it would definitely let you trade for him.
Yeah.
Like, we're trying to, because if Vladdy's on the open market, the Mariners are not the only ones offering a prospect package. But the Mariners sure as hell want him. Yeah. So make sure that happens.
All right.
You're like, well, we gave up what we thought was appropriate value, and they took someone else's package. Like, no, go get him.
To that point, it was like the Luis Castillo trade where people said, look, the Mariners gave up a lot for him, but you had to because otherwise somebody was going to give up more or pay what the Reds wanted. And like we talked about at the time before this podcast had ever been started, if the Rangers had given up a flurry of prospects for Luis Castillo, like what was rumored, because they were in on him, would we have been like, look at all the prospects the Rangers gave up? No, we probably would have been jealous, saying he's going to pitch in our division. We could have traded for him. So, to that point,
as we keep reminding ourselves, looking back at that trade, we would do it 100 times out of 100.
Well, considering Noelvi's been awful and was juicing so far, Edwin Arroyo has not been the same guy since he left Seattle's system. Yeah. Levi Stout made his way back to the Mariners system at one point last year. So, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, next question. This is from, to get the name right, this is from Futuristic Gorilla, and he asks, should the Mariners go for Roki Sasaki?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple yes. Some of
Does
you
Roki Sasaki want to go to the Mariners? No. However, can I make a pitch to Roki Sasaki? I'm going to look at the camera here.
Yes.
I'm going to make a pitch to Roki Sasaki. All right, Roki, listen. I know you were thinking about coming over to play in Major League Baseball, and that's fantastic. Dodgers are a very intriguing option for you. I know the Mets have been courting you. I know the Cubs have been courting you. I know there are plenty of big market options that might tickle your fancy to come over here to Major League Baseball. But if you're looking to come over early, you're not going to be making as much money, meaning technically every team can afford you. And when you're not making as much money and you're going to be put on the standard, 6-year rookie deal with 3 league minimum years and 3 arbitration years, it's risky for you. Meaning, if you go somewhere that don't pitch as well, you're not going to make as much money in free agency. You're not going to make as much money in arbitration. What if I told you there was a place that you would have the lowest ERA than anywhere else? What if I told you that T-Mobile Park is the best place to pitch in all of Major League Baseball? You'd come to Seattle. Your ERA would be really deflated because of the ballpark environment. And by the time you reach arbitration, you can ask for the moon because you have a 2.5 ERA pitching in the biggest cheat code of a ballpark of all time. And then you hit the open market in 6 years. You cash in on your $300 to $400 million you have rightfully earned as a 28-year-old in free agency that the Mariners will never meet. You can go on your happy way to the Dodgers or the Mets or the Yankees or wherever, and the Mariners will thank you for your services.
Let me also add, can we also interest you in the team that develops pitchers better than anybody in baseball? You should add that in, along with the ballpark.
Just take a look at the rotation, Roki.
Yeah.
All
so
homegrown.
let's fill people in a little bit and connect the dots. If you have not heard of Roki Sasaki and have been living under a rock, Yoshinobu Yamamoto got 12 years for $325 million from the Dodgers this past winter. There is a real belief Roki Sasaki is a step better than Yoshinobu Yamamoto. There's a real belief that just as a pure pitcher, he's better than Shohei. This might be the best pitcher to come over from Japan in who knows how long. He is so young. He is so good. He throws triple digits with ease. And a guy that if he was going to wait till those 6 years were up in Japan before coming over, he might get $400 million from a team. He really might. But now there's all this speculation that's similar to Shohei when he came over. Roki Sasaki may not care about waiting for the money. He sounds like he just wants to play in Major League Baseball. And if he decides to come over this winter and his team in the NPB in Japan agree to post him and let him go stateside, he's going to be available to all 30 teams because similar to Shohei, if you remember, when he came over from Japan, he could not make a real contract. the only money you could sign him with was international slot money that you have accrued, and then aside from that, he's making the league minimum until he hits arbitration. So if those of you that are out there saying, the Mariners already have the best rotation in baseball, they've got 5 starters, correct. I don't care. If you can pay Roki Sasaki $2 million a year to play for your baseball team, you're making amends to make it happen. Plain and simple. Maybe then you feel better about the idea of trading a pitcher for a bat, too. There is absolutely no excuse to not be in on Roki Sasaki if he comes over from Japan. He seriously might be the best pitcher in baseball. That is his ceiling if he comes over as the best pitcher in baseball. All that being said, he's going to be a Dodger.
Yeah, he said he's wanting to be a Dodger. They're trying to court him. They already have, again, Shohei and Yamamoto who will be in the rotation there next year. There is probably a massive influx of Japanese endorsement cash circling around the Dodgers because of those two. And it would be so convenient for Sasaki to be in that rotation as well. I will note, on the positive end for the Mariners in this situation, if Roki waits until, or the team he plays for in Japan waits until after, I think, the 15th of December to post him, that's the next signing class, the next international class, and the Mariners would have the most money to spend, tied for the most money to spend of any organization in baseball, which is about $7.5 million. So if they wait, and it's not a certain if he'll get posted because him and the team are still in negotiations on that kind of thing. Remember that the team gets a certain percentage of their posting fee is a percentage of whatever Sasaki signs for. And if they want to wait until after the signing period, which would mean more money for them, I think they might do that. And then legitimately the Mariners would have monetarily a real edge money-wise. It is also unfortunately pretty clear that money is not a huge priority to Sasaki this second, because if it was, he'd probably stay in Japan for 2 years and cash out for $400 million in 2026. Mm-hmm. But he's not going to wait, or 2027 it would be. But he's not. It doesn't sound like he wants to wait that long.
So if he's posted after December 15th, he will still pitch in the majors in 2025, but you can use next year's signing money internationally to pay him.
I think that's how I understand it. Yeah.
Great. Sign me up. That being said, if you're Roki Sasaki, while I'd love for it to be the case of him, quote unquote, chasing money, aka not very much because he can't make that much, I am going to guess he cares a lot more about taking $3.5 to $4 million to go pitch for the Dodgers than taking $7.5 million to pitch for the M's. Because he's also going to get a ton of endorsement money too, which will only be inflated if he goes to the Dodgers.
He would get endorsement money in Seattle too. I really don't think the Mariners have a bad pitch for him. Of any of the free agents, they would have the best pitch for him. I just don't know how they would communicate that. Because I think as much as the Mariners could rely on the likes of Ichiro to make a pitch for him, clearly the Mariners' pitch to Shohei did not work. And I think any sort of courting that Shohei does will be significantly more valuable to Sasaki than anything the Mariners could offer.
I agree. Why haven't we talked about this more? As we're thinking this out, see, this is why all you guys are the best. You guys send us awesome mailbag questions. You get us thinking. You get us talking. You get us processing. Why haven't we thought about this more? I'm not saying it's going to happen, but the idea of the Mariners paying $4 million to $5 million to sign Roki Sasaki for 6 years, which could free you up to feel comfortable trading an arm for a legit bat. Why haven't we thought about this?
Would there be any arm off the table then if they sign Sasaki?
I still wouldn't trade Brian Wu. A ton of club control. We saw what the upside was. He can be a legit ace. As crazy as it sounds, he might be the guy I least want to move off of. But aside from him, no. Because if none of those...
So he is flat out off the table, even if you sign Sasaki.
Because those two guys would be together for about the same amount of time. Wu's got 5 years of club control. Sasaki has 6. You could keep those guys together. If someone
offered you market value for Brian Wu? Because we always talk about with these trades that you're worried you wouldn't get market value. But let's create a hypothetical where you sign Sasaki and someone offers you market value for Brian Wu.
Are we talking Brian Wu for Jackson Holiday? Fine, I'd make that trade.
Sure. Yeah, that's market value. Like a really young, really high-end bat is market value.
Fine. If it's going to be somebody like that with a ton of club control and the upside to be one of the best infielders in all of Major League Baseball in Jackson Holiday, sure.
Yeah.
But
that's what I mean.
Aside from that, probably wouldn't do it. So if that's the case, and you have the chance to have Miller and Wu together for 5 years, Sasaki there for 6 years, that's still a real core of a rotation together. That's 3 of 5 guys that you could keep together a long time. If you could not move off those two, that'd be ideal. And then if you do not think that one of George Kirby and Logan Gilbert are going to sign an extension, then you can explore trading those guys a little bit more frequently at that point, because you'd have an arm that could replace them, and you could get serious reinforcements back for them offensively.
I think the Mariners should print out Baseball Savant's Park Factor list and then walk into the room with Roki Sasaki and slam it down on the table. That's legitimately what I think they should do. It's like, oh, you want to pitch well? Do you want to have a low ERA, a high strikeout rate, things that get pitchers paid a lot of money? Who does it better than us?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Mm-hmm. Seriously, you didn't even answer the question. Why haven't we talked about this more until right now? We just didn't think about it?
Well, because it's not been an assurance he's going to be posted. It has always been a maybe that he would be posted. After that number that Yamamoto got last offseason, everyone just assumed Roki sees that number and is like, okay, I'm going to pitch 3 more seasons in NPB, and then I'm going to beat that number by a wide margin.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes sense. Which, I'm going to be honest, I think he should do. Because I've seen the argument for it. The argument for it is he feels like he would rather challenge himself a little bit more now and face big league hitters, make himself better for when he's a free agent at, age 28 if he came over right now. Which, fine. But thinking about this, you don't have to prove yourself to big leaguers and you'll still get paid more money in less time.
Right.
That part I understand a little bit less, but it's it's his career that he makes a decision to do. But overall, again, the answer to your question is because it hasn't been an assurance that he was going to be posted. It's always been a rumor.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
But if he does get posted, the Mariners, even if he's not willing to talk, they should still find a way. Just try and get a meeting with him.
Yeah.
You have so much to offer.
On the West Coast, history of Japanese players, best pitching ballpark in baseball. Nobody develops pitchers better at this point than the Mariners do. Yeah, you've got a real sales pitch. And again, this is right up their alley because they don't have to pay a bunch of money. If Roki Sasaki was coming over when he's eligible to make the big contract, Mariners wouldn't even pick up the phone.
Yeah. And the team's in a budget crunch. What's better for a budget crunch than a guy making the league minimum, but yet giving you the production of someone who's worth probably $30 to $40 million a year?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds pretty good to me. And he dominates. And he throws 102 miles an hour. And oh, by the way, on this scouting scale, he has an 80-grade fastball and an 80-grade splitter. Sounds like a worthwhile pitch to me.
Just think about all the names. Shohei, Yamamoto, Kodai Senga, all pitchers that have come over from Japan and been stars in Major League Baseball. Stars. Again, Yamamoto got $325 million. And they say Roki Sasaki is the best of all of them and legitimately has the upside to be the best pitcher in baseball. Sign me up.
Sounds pretty good to me. Yeah. Let's get to our next question. This is from Retcon FN on YouTube. The question is, what are your top 3 realistic bats to get this team back on track? Keyword there, Lyle. Realistic. Not what we want, but what the Mariners say, their realistic options this offseason.
Kyle Tucker?
Very realistic.
Okay, I wrote out 3 names, and we can start to rip through some of these questions since we spent a lot of time on Sasaki. I wrote out Christian Walker, Now, you can debate if that's realistic or not. It should be. He is not going to cost the Kings ransom, so I put him on here. Sign Christian Walker to play first. Trade for Brandon Lau to play second. Trade for Alec Boehm to play third. Sign me right up for that offseason. Sign, seal, delivered.
So you did some trades there, too. I did not. I did all free agents. Mm-hmm. So realistic first base option I wrote down is Carlos Santana. Connection with the Mariners. Coming off a good year last year. He's old. Definitely is old. Mariners, we have noted the Mariners need some leadership in the clubhouse. So you could say it's either Carlos Santana or Justin Turner. Both are available on the free agent market this season. Santana was, I think, a little bit better of a hitter, and he was a really good defender this year, too, at first base. So that's the pitch for Carlos Santana. I think Hye-Seong Kim's realistic if he's getting a 3-year deal. He brings everything you would really want in a baseball player, like a slightly above league average bat. Wanting a proven option, he is proven to hit in a pitcher's park in San Diego for the last 3 seasons. And his WRC plus at second base would be higher than any second base option the Mariners have had since Robinson Cano. And then the last one I have is Jose Iglesias, who will, I don't think, cost a ton and is coming off a pretty good season. Limited sample size, but still a pretty decent season, even though he's historically not a great hitter. Like, those are what I deem currently realistic. I would love to be pleasantly surprised that these are laughable realistic options and that they signed someone for more money.
So you think me saying Christian Walker is actually shooting too high for the moon?
Not really. No. If he gets a 3-year deal, I don't think that's unrealistic.
All right. Yeah,
it's probably the top end of what they will do.
Right. But that's why I also wrote out 2 trades, because you could sign one, you could trade for 2 more. If you go get Brandon Lau to play second, you get Alec Boehm to play third, and you get Christian Walker to play first, yeah, I'd look at this lineup and say, with this pitching staff, this team can go make a run in the playoffs. This team can contend for a pennant in the American League. They just have to get into the field. With those 3 on the infield, you can get there.
Yeah.
Okay.
No pressure, guys.
No, none at all. None at all. It's not that expensive. Just going to say that about Christian Walker. He's not going to be that expensive. You can afford it, believe it or not. Okay. Next question. This is from Ellie on Instagram, and she says, you have to give up 3 Mariners to get Juan Soto. Who do you give up?
I wrote out essentially a rule for myself on this one, because it would be so easy to say that I could give up like 3 guys in the bullpen, or the 3 worst Mariners on the Mariners 25-man roster. Just to watch Lyle score him, I'll say I'll give up Dylan Moore, Josh Rojas, and I'll throw in a decent, like an everyday player, and Luke Raley, right? I'll say I'll give up those 3 for Juan Soto. Like, that's a pretty easy yes, but that's too easy. So I'm writing myself a rule for this. I would give up any 3 players on the Mariners roster for Juan Soto. The rules are that Cal Raleigh's off the table and that you cannot choose more than 1 player from the rotation. Now, notice that rule says I would give up Julio Rodriguez for Juan Soto because they're 2 years apart, and Soto's been a more consistent big leaguer.
So you'd opt to choose offense over defense?
Yes. In terms of just an overall baseball player, Juan Soto's been more consistent. Julio's defense in center is fantastic, but I think you could go find a good fielding center fielder for not that much. And, their bat would probably not suffice, but that's fine because you'd have Juan Soto.
He's not an elite defender anymore, but you could have Victor Robles play center field most of the year and just have Juan Soto either in a corner or DH, and that's that.
Right. It's a tough one. I know not all Mariner fans would give up Julio for Juan Soto, but if you're telling me that 10 years of Juan Soto is available and I had to give up Julio Rodriguez, I'd probably do that. At this moment. Maybe check back next offseason. That could change. But right now I would.
I'd do it too. Again, not everybody's going to agree, but let's say this loud and clear about Juan Soto. He is called the modern day Ted Williams. Yeah, I'd trade just about anything for that.
Yep. Julio's profile is more common in Major League Baseball history than Juan Soto's is.
Correct.
Sometimes to get the unicorn, you got to give up something that's going to hurt. Except for Cal Raleigh. Cal Raleigh is off limits because you can't find switch hitting top offensive catchers who are also great framers and good at throwing out runners. And ultimate team guys. You don't find those guys.
And as good with this pitching staff as he is.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. But any of the 5 in the rotation alongside Julio, it would really hurt, but I'd do it. For 10 years of Juan Soto. Remember, 10 years of Juan Soto. Yeah.
You know what Juan Soto's going to be doing in the last year of that contract, by the way? Probably have a 125 WRC plus instead of a 160.
Sounds pretty good to me. Could we get 40-year-old Juan, or no, that would be 36-year-old Juan Soto. I'd take him right now instead of 26.
Yeah. Oh, 36-year-old Juan Soto would be the best hitter on the team.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yes, I'm giving it up. As I've said, and I will continue to say, I would give Juan Soto $1 billion this second to play for the Mariners. If that meant you had to give up some pieces of your team right now that would hurt for him, yeah, I'd give it up.
Do you have like a rule, or are you in lockstep with me?
Well, when this question was asked, I wanted to have some fun and just be like, yeah, can I just give up players at the bottom of the roster for Juan Soto so you can keep everybody? But the baseball gods may say, yeah, you're not getting away with that. We need more from you. So if that's the case, you talking out your rule, I like that rule. Don't give up Cal Raleigh. You can't give up your whole rotation. You can only give up one guy max. But other than that, guys are on the table. If you had to give up some more everyday guys, yeah, I'd do it. There is no other I was going to say there is no other Juan Soto in baseball. I would call him the third best hitter in baseball at this point. The only other 2 guys that are ahead of him are also going to be first ballot Hall of Famers. I would say Judge and Shohei.
Yeah. Yep.
There are not many Juan Sotos out there. And Judge and Shohei are a lot older than Juan Soto is. And while they might be better right now, they don't have the type of profile that Soto has, as sustainable as it can be long term. Now, Judge walks a lot, so to give Judge credit, it's not like he doesn't have a good approach, but there's just something different about what Soto does. It is next level in the batter's box. And he's 26.
Yeah, can we give some more context to that age again? So we've talked about the Bryce Miller thing for Juan Soto, that Juan Soto's younger than Bryce Miller is. But since you brought up Aaron Judge, Soto's walk year and Aaron Judge's rookie year are the same age.
Yeah.
Aaron Judge, remember, in 2017, broke onto the scene, 50-plus homers as a rookie. That's his first year in the big leagues. Soto at age 25 was in his walk year, playing next to Aaron Judge.
Yeah. Well, yep. Judge broke into the league in 16, and he wasn't very good in the 20-plus games
he was 24, he stunk, and got sent right down to the minors.
Right. And then broke out after that.
Right, at 25. But I think, but 25 was still his full rookie year.
Yeah. Yeah, he won Rookie of the Year that year.
Yeah.
So
let's get to our next question. This is from Dane on Instagram. The question is, do you think if the Mariners relocated, they'd be able to hit the ball?
I'm sure it would help to not be in Seattle and not have such tough hitting environments. But ultimately, it's about the talent of the players on the field. They might hit a little more. I don't think you'd see it be night and day. Look, ultimately, this team has to get the roster better. That's what it's about. While it may provide some complications like it did for Teo, or so he says, it is not all because of the ballpark itself, why guys just can't hit. There are road guys that come here and hit. It is about the players on the team, and you've got to get the roster better offensively. That is what it boils down to.
Here's what I can guarantee. If they moved to Denver, they would score more runs.
Yeah.
That would happen. But you know how else they would score more runs? If they built another dome. I think they'd also score more runs. Just such a unique environment. But to answer your question, yes, they would score more runs if they moved away. But there are also ways to offset that. your pitching staff would be significantly worse if you moved. This rotation would not be the best in baseball, and it wouldn't be the best in franchise history if you moved to Colorado.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It'd probably be, no offense to these guys, they'd probably be average.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, that's about right.
So
Sure.
That's just how it is. The environment benefits some and hurts others.
All right. We got 2 more questions to go. This one's pretty fun. This one comes from Jacob Mayer on Instagram, and he says, who are the 5 most disliked players by Mariners fandom all time? And where's Alex Bregman? Somebody didn't like our comments in the last show about saying we wanted Alex Bregman here, clearly, which, get a grip. Just kidding. We love you, Jacob. We appreciate all the questions. We know you listen a lot. Shout out to you. But this team needs Alex Bregman.
You know, I don't think Alex Bregman's on a top 5 list of most hated Mariners opponents ever by the fans. I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
But here's who is. Okay. Let's set this up. What player do Mariners fans hate most all time? The first guy on my list is super obvious. Alex Rodriguez. I think is easily the most hated person all time by Mariners fans. I think the number 2 in my waking memory is Jose Altuve. Pretty easily. And that's universal across baseball. So it counts for the Mariners. But then after that, it gets a little bit more interesting. I'm going to put Abe Toro on there because my dislike spans league-wide and fan base-wide. So he's got to be on that list. I chose one more cheating Astro, Carlos Correa. I don't think people like Correa all that much, especially from his time in Houston. And then the last guy is a recent addition to the list, and it's Hector Neris. So Hector Neris screaming at Julio has earned himself a spot on this top 5 list. Now this list, for some context, is my list. I've been alive since 1998. I have no memory of the older players that some of you listening might have really hated in the 90s or even the 80s. I would have no idea because I wasn't alive then. But in my memory, this is it.
Mm-hmm. We have a couple of similar guys. I have A-Rod on here. You have to. I had Altuve on here. You have to, because somebody from that 2017 Astros team is going to be on the list. And to be fair, the core 4 of that offense still get booed pretty much every time they come to Seattle. Altuve and Bregman get booed a lot. George Springer still gets booed when he comes to town from Toronto. Carlos Correa still gets booed when he's here with the Twins. But I still just went with Altuve. He seems to get the biggest share of the pie for it. He seems to really get booed the hardest by Mariners fans and honestly by fans, period, when they travel other places. So, I have A-Rod and Altuve. After that, I had some fun with it with some more recent guys. Jesse Winker, he really got booed when he came back to town. And people didn't exactly seem like they were the biggest Jesse Winker fans in the world when he was in Seattle. So, he's on this list.
Checks out.
I mean, you weren't at that Mets series, TJ. He was getting booed. Like, people let him have it. So
take your word for it.
That's 3. I was trying to think if anybody from that Angels fight is really worthy of being on the list. There's like Phil Nevin, but he doesn't count because he was a manager. And that was mostly about him. So I didn't include anybody from that Angels fight. You included Hector Neris, which is probably more spot on. So, my final 2, Sean Figgins, maybe the most disappointing Mariner ever. And you still hear people talk about their disdain for that guy. Because I don't think he was well liked either, just as a guy. So that's 4. And the last one, Cole Irvin. Cole Irvin, whose father is the Seattle Mariners.
Is it still dislike, though, with Cole Irvin? Or is it almost like... Or do Mariner fans actually kind of feel bad for him now?
No, they don't. It's still Cole Irvin.
It's mostly funny.
It's mostly funny, but the narrative still gets driven every time he takes the mound against the M's. So, because that's still going 3 years later, yeah, he's on this list.
No Rendon.
I thought about it, but what has he ever specifically done to the Mariners? He's more of a meme.
Sat in the dugout and tried to instigate a fight while injured.
Yeah, so that goes back to saying, should I pick anybody from that 2022 Angels fight? But I don't know if he's the guy I most think about when I think about that fight. When I think about that fight, I think about Phil Nevin because he totally instigated it. I think about Andrew Wantz, who was the pitcher who was throwing at everybody. And then I think about Rafael, not Soriano. How am I blanking on? Oh, Iglesias.
Is it Iglesias?
Rafael Iglesias. Yeah. Duh. I don't know how I was blanking on it.
Throwing the gum onto the field.
Yeah, because he chucked the gum in the cooler and all that. That's who I think about from that fight. Less Rendon.
Yeah.
So,
well, that would require Rendon being healthy and playing and active and caring at all about Major League Baseball.
Well, he does. He does. He's shown that.
Really? Interesting.
Oh, that's a guy who plays with fire, with passion, love of the game. They're going to make a Love of the Game 2 movie about Anthony Rendon. Kevin Costner's going to choose the cast. He's going to direct it and say, "You're going to cameo in this."
If you have a top 5 list though of that differs from ours of top 5 most disliked Mariners opponents, players, drop us a comment on YouTube. Let us know. Send us a DM, something. Comment on our podcast post, our quotes, and let us know. I'd be curious to hear out because I think outside of the top 2, you can make an argument for a lot of guys. I seriously do.
Right. So one more time before our last question, my list was A-Rod, Altuve, Sean Figgins, Jesse Winker, Cole Irvin.
And mine was A-Rod, Altuve, Abe, the legend, Toro, Carlos Correa, Hector Neris.
I can't wait till Abe's a Mariner again. At some point in his career, it's going to happen, and you're going to be forced to face the music.
Let's hope not. The last one on Instagram comes from BAdams247 on Instagram. And this is more of a statement to say, Matt Boyd gave up 1 run in 11 2/3 innings in the playoffs. Time to split up the Miller/Woo bromance. Frowny face. So.
Don't think so. Unfortunately, for the sake of this listener, I don't think that's happening in any way, shape, or form. I hate to break it to you because clearly this person's a Matt Boyd fan, but Matt Boyd's pitching on year-to-year contracts at this point is in his 30s. He was the last guy in the bullpen for the Mariners in 2022. I don't think the Mariners have any interest in giving up Brian Wu or Bryce Miller to bring back Matt Boyd. And listen, Matt Boyd's loved here. His interview after they clinched the playoffs was awesome. But they're not giving up Wu or Miller. No way. Not for that. Again, if they signed Roki Sasaki, maybe, but not for Matt Boyd.
I have a couple of context points here with Matt Boyd. So, Lau, would you consider Brian Wu like a bulldog that's going to go out there and just eat up as many innings as possible? Just in general. Would you consider him that right now?
He hasn't accumulated enough innings for that. So
right. Okay, good. That's the answer I'm looking for. Thank you. So, keeping that in context, Brian Wu pitched the same amount of innings this year as Matt Boyd has the last 3 seasons combined.
Well,
Matt Boyd threw 39 innings this year. Total. Yeah, you're not sticking him in the rotation next year. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Listen, B.Adams247 on Instagram. Obviously, we appreciate all the questions. Every fan thinks a little bit differently. You're probably a big Matt Boyd fan, which we don't blame you. Again, he's a Seattle legend and was on the playoff team and had that awesome interview. And people still root for him. We still root for him. So, we don't want to take away your own opinion or anything like that. If that's how you feel, that's how you feel. But I would say I would separate your love for Matt Boyd and the idea of trading away Brian Wu or Bryce Miller. You're talking about 2 guys that had sub-3 ERAs this year and have 5 years of club control.
Last thing. Did we not learn our lesson this year from signing a player who in part, I guess, because he had an amazing playoff run the year before? Did we not learn our lesson with that? Who am I talking about, Lyle?
Great playoff run the year before and then signed him.
Mitch Garver.
Garver. Yeah.
How'd that turn out?
Well, he's going to turn it around in 2025. Odd year, Mitch Garver.
That's to the level of coping we're at. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Not great. It's a similar profile too. Mitch Garver played 60-something games for the Rangers in 2023 before he signed with the Mariners. Had an amazing postseason.
He played more like 90 games, but yeah.
It's not great. He did not play a full season. Like Matt Boyd did not pitch a full season. And then had an excellent playoff performance. And then signed in Seattle and stunk. So, would not want Matt Boyd to suffer the same fate.
Fair. All right, that was a good mailbag. As always, you guys send awesome questions. So thank you guys for being creative. Thank you guys for sending them to us. We try to pick the best ones we can. If we didn't get to your question, send us another the next time we do a mailbag. And be creative with it, because those are the ones we like. Those are the ones we try and use. And we'll try to get to as many as we can the next time we do a mailbag. But one more time, shout out to you guys for sending all of those in. With that, that'll just about wrap up this edition of the Marine Layer podcast. You guys know the drill. You want to listen to the full form podcast, you can do so wherever you get your audio pods. Make sure to download. Make sure to leave a good review, rate and review. Leave it as 5 stars. It really does help us out a bunch. Like, comment, and please subscribe on YouTube. It's the best way to support the channel. And if you're on social media, which I know most of you are, find us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube Shorts at Marine Layer Pod. That's TJ. I'm Lyle. As always, we thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.